What am I doing here? I should be asking you that. My wife is in a hotel room with a strange man. I have every right to be furious. I never saw it coming, and now I'm miserable, alone, and trying to put the pieces of my life back together in a new country that isn't my own, after having it shaken up by a vixen who manipulated me and forced me into this unfortunate situation. I met her 4 years ago. I was in America on a business trip, as I often was back then before moving here to marry her and be with her permanently. Since I was away from home so often, and would have a lot of downtime during these work trips during the time when I wasn't actually working, I would do things like get haircuts or go to the gym. Normal stuff that allowed me to keep my appearance up while also giving me a chance to be around and interact with other people outside of just the ones I'd meet through work. It can get pretty lonely having this type of career, and I'm the kind of guy who likes to take care of himself. I prefer to be active and can't stand my hair getting even slightly longer than what I consider to be the perfect length, which is fairly short on the sides and faded to a slightly longer length on top. I say this because on one of my trips, I go to a local salon, as I usually do, where I meet a beautiful stylist named Bryn, who appears to be in her late 20s. Not only did she style my hair to perfection, just the way I like it, but she has a personality that captivated me from the moment I sat in her chair. Bryn was witty, intelligent, and had a way of making me feel like the most interesting person in the world. The half hour I spent with her that first day seemed to fly by in just a few minutes, and I found myself scheduling another hair appointment that I didn't even need a week later, just to have an excuse to see her again. The second time we met was just before I'd be leaving, and although I'd be back eventually, since many of my work assignments required me to return to certain cities multiple times a year, I had to see her one additional time before leaving on that first trip. So I asked her on a date, which she agreed to, and our communication didn't end there. We continued to talk on the phone or through Skype, and over the course of the next few months, our conversations grew deeper and our connection stronger. I ended up seeing her a few more times that first year on a couple more of these work trips, and some others I scheduled myself using vacation time. By the end of that year, I asked Bryn if she would be willing to move to Germany and be my wife. She told me she loved me and wanted to be with me, but that she can't leave her family behind as they mean everything to her and need her around as much as possible. This is because her dad, a retired Army vet who's on permanent disability, her mom Carol, who also has health problems, and her older brother Chuck are all still living together in her home where she grew up. And she not only helped them with things like picking up groceries or giving her parents rides to doctor's appointments and that sort of thing, but also helped them financially as much as she could. Her brother Chuck was pretty much useless, and her mom had always been a housewife, so the only income they had was Walter's, and the only money he was bringing in was from his military disability checks and Social Security, which barely covered all their living costs. Chuck contributed nothing because he struggled with alcoholism and had trouble holding down a job, which was made more difficult by the fact that he had no license after getting arrested multiple times for driving under the influence. So he couldn't even offer their parents rides to doctor's appointments. Not only was he not helping their parents, but they were basically providing for him. Once I found out about all of this, and wanting Bryn not to have to struggle, since I made significantly more money than she does, I told her I would help her family financially to rid her of the burden, and we decided it would be better if instead of her moving to Germany, I would get a job in America and move to be with her. So that's what I did. I wasn't able to find a job quite as good as the one I had in my home country, but at least now I could be with Bryn and no longer had to travel constantly for work to be with her. Plus, my new job still paid enough that I could continue providing for her and her family, although I did take a significant pay cut and my living costs went up. None of that mattered to me though. If it meant I could be with Bryn, I didn't care. And initially, I really felt like it was worth it because the first 2 years of our marriage were great. We settled into a nice house near Bryn's family, which got her out of the tiny apartment where she had been living with a roommate, and I couldn't have been happier. I was the most loving, caring husband I could possibly be, and was grateful that every night I could fall asleep beside my equally loving and caring wife. I truly thought I had found my soulmate. Bryn's family situation continued to be a source of stress, but I was determined to support her in any way I could, even paying for her to go back to school and earn her associate's degree. And we often would discuss our dreams of starting our own family one day. We both knew that having kids would be a challenge, with me working so often and Bryn still working while also going to school, plus the responsibility we both now shared towards her family. But I had no doubt in my mind that we could overcome any obstacle as long as we faced it together, and the plan was to have our first child once she was officially done with the school and would have more time and less stress that could possibly affect the pregnancy. However, a little over 2 years into the marriage, right after Bryn graduated, we were supposed to put this plan into action, but instead, she suddenly started becoming more distant towards me. I would try to initiate bedroom time with her so we could work on conceiving our first child, but rather than following through and being the loving wife I was used to, she started making excuses not to be with me in the bedroom. She would say she was tired or not feeling well, or that she had a headache. I couldn't understand what had changed between us or why she was now pulling away when we were supposed to be starting a new chapter in our lives. Then she started going out more often with her friends and attending events, but never inviting me to join her. It was as if she wanted to keep me separated from her social life, shutting me out little by little, while I was not only earning the larger share of income, but was also doing most of the chores and housework now too. But I loved her, so I continued to support her not only financially, but emotionally and every other way I could. Throughout this whole period, I continued to wonder what had changed. Was it something I'd done? Was there someone else? These thoughts consumed my mind and began to eat away at my confidence and self-worth. Bryn had been my rock, my anchor in this new country, far from my own family and friends, in the life I'd always known. But now she was starting to seem like a stranger to me. Finally, one night I break down, after yet another rejection in the bedroom, and I question her about her behavior and this new side of her I hadn't seen before. She looks at me with a mixture of resentment and annoyance and says, "You're just insecure," as if my concerns were just an inconvenience to her. "Can't you see it's your issues that are ruining this relationship?" I couldn't see that, because it wasn't true. She was gaslighting me, but I didn't realize it at the time. So taken aback by her accusation, I say, "Insecurity? How am I the problem here?" I had dedicated myself entirely to Bryn, sacrificing my life and happiness for the sake of hers and her family. But now, it's like none of that even mattered. But because I wanted the marriage to work, and to get back to the place we'd been for so long up to this point, I say, maybe we should go to marriage counseling, and she agrees. Despite my hopes that seeking help from a marriage counselor would bring us closer together, it seemed to only deepen the divide between us. The counselor's office became a space where Bryn continued to deflect blame onto me, while refusing to acknowledge her own role in our crumbling relationship. She painted a picture of an insecure, jealous husband, completely disregarding the fact that her own behaviors had changed drastically, and ignoring the fact that I had moved halfway around the world to help her and her family, not to mention all the other ways I tried to be a great husband. I might not have been perfect, but I certainly tried my best, and that's more than I could say for her. So week after week, we sit in that room as the counselor attempts to mediate our disputes, but it's clear the entire time that Bryn has no intention of being honest. She skillfully maneuvers every conversation away from her contribution to our problems, perpetuating this facade of innocence while continuing to point fingers at my supposed flaws. As the sessions go on, so does my frustration, and it grows. I watch helplessly as Bryn expertly manipulates the therapist and constructs a narrative that makes me look like a villain. And the counselor eats it up while I'm sitting there the whole time knowing it's complete bullcrap. I regularly think, how could she possibly be this deceitful? And her manipulative behavior ultimately makes me start to suspect something more is going on that I'm unaware of. I can't shake the feeling Bryn's hiding something from me. There's just too many unanswered questions, too many unexplained nights out, and secretive behaviors. It gets to a point where I feel like I need answers that I know I'm never going to get from Bryn, so I decide to hire a private investigator because I need to know the truth, even if it means confirming my worst fears. After a little research, I contact a guy named Dennis, who's a discreet, professional guy, and promises to gather evidence without tipping off Bryn. He follows her around every time she leaves the house to go to or from work, and when she heads out to go spend time with her friends, documenting every one of her moves and taking photos and videos as evidence. The day comes when he finishes his investigation, and he gives me a file filled with all of the images, videos, and a detailed report he typed up explaining Bryn's activities and clearing up anything that wasn't explained by the images alone. As I sit there going through each piece of evidence on a night when Bryn yet again is out with her friends, I'm trembling so bad the cursor on the computer screen can barely stay still. My heart shatters into pieces while I view picture after picture of her laughing and smiling, not with her friends as I'd been told and believed, but with a man I'd never seen before. They stroll arm in arm through parks, their bodies pressed close together, sharing intimate glances at each other from across tables and restaurants, clearly thinking they're alone and having the time of their lives. But luckily, Dennis was as good at his job as his reviewers claimed he'd be. And just like that, the life I thought I had built with Bryn crumbles beneath me like a rickety old bridge, causing me to fall into a pit of despair, which I still haven't recovered from. Even her trips with friends were actually just romantic getaways with him. And as I looked through the photos and videos of them, I saw the version of her that I used to know. The version that would smile and look at me with all the joy and love she now aimed at him. The version of her I knew just a few months earlier. It turns out this man was a work colleague of hers named Seth. He started working there around the same time Bryn's behavior towards me changed. I learned this from Dennis as well, and couldn't be more grateful to have chosen him as the guy who would help me uncover everything. He even went as far as to book a hair appointment with Seth to chat with him and get details I don't think he could have gotten otherwise. He really was great at his job, and thanks to him, I now had all the information I needed to know exactly where and how I would confront Bryn about the affair. So I used the information to prepare my next move. Dennis gave me the address of the hotel where they would often meet up, so I went and studied the layout of the building, noting all the possible exits and entrances, which areas of the parking lot would allow me to discreetly observe their arrival and follow them into the building undetected. And sure enough, only a couple of days later, Bryn tells me she's having another one of her nights out with the girls. I act like I always do, but once she heads out, I get in my car and follow her, trailing far behind so that she can't see me. She ends up going to a cafe in the nearby town where they always meet, one of her and Seth's regular meeting places before going back to their favorite hotel. So I get there before them and wait because I don't want to approach them at the restaurant and have her claim it was just a friendly meeting between coworkers or something. I wait in the parking lot in a spot close enough to the entrance so that I'll see them entering but won't be spotted. And I scan the faces of every driver coming through for about an hour until I finally see the both of them show up in his car. I go around to the side entrance and follow them up to the room from a distance, then wait a while outside of the door until I start hearing noises. I press my ear against the door and hear muffled sounds that leave no question she's cheating on me, and I feel a tightening in my chest. I try to steady my breathing, but it comes out ragged and uneven. The pain is so unbearable, it feels like it's literally suffocating me. Then my sadness turns to rage, and although I had planned to wait to confront them on their way out of the hotel, I can't help myself and beat on the door to stop them from something I know they've probably done dozens of times or more over the last few months. But it was like I had no control over my actions at this point. It takes them a moment, and Seth comes to the door and asks who it is. I cover the peephole, not quite being prepared for the moment, and just yell, "Open the door!" Then I hear Bryn whisper in a panicked tone, "Oh my God, it's my husband. Bryn, I know you're in there. Open the damn door." My voice is straining with anger and desperation. I can hear them trying to gather themselves before opening, so I continue to pound and yell while I see other hotel guests down the hall staring at me like they're witnessing a psychopath, which in the moment, I feel like one. I'm sweating, shaking, and really not sure what I'm going to do once the door opens because I can't even think straight. The time between me knocking and them answering feels like forever, but finally the door opens a crack with that little metal bar latch thing still attached, so I can't push it open even though I try, and Bryn says, "Ray, what are you doing here?" "What am I doing here? I should be asking you that. Open the door and get out here now." She just says, "Calm down. My wife is in a hotel room with a strange man. I have every right to be furious." Then she starts crying and says, "Ray, you're scaring me. I've never seen you like this. Please, just promise you aren't going to do anything crazy." So I try to control myself, and in a still angry but more quiet tone I say, "Bryn, I'm your husband and we're leaving. Get out here." Finally, she comes out, tears running down her flushed, guilty-looking face, but she quickly shuts the door behind her so I can't confront Seth. I stand there yelling at her while she wipes away tears, and Seth continues to hide behind the door like the coward that he is. Then Bryn says with her voice trembling, "Ray, please, you're embarrassing me. Let's just go home and talk about this." "You should be embarrassed. You betrayed our vows, me, after everything I've done for you. You should be embarrassed and ashamed, you slut." She says, "I didn't betray you. He's just a friend." And this arguing continues down the hall and out the hotel, while employees and hotel guests cast judgmental glances our way, staring at us with curiosity and I'm sure excitement over the live drama, which was probably the highlight of their day. But I'm so furious, I couldn't even give their glances a second thought. I tell Bryn, "I know about the affair, so stop lying." Then she apologizes but continues to deny sleeping with him despite all the evidence I have and the fact that I've literally heard this with my own ears. She tries to convince me that wasn't what I was hearing and says that basically she was having an emotional affair with Seth, but it never got physical, continuing to gaslight me and try to manipulate me like she did in our counseling sessions. Was he worth it? Was it worth throwing away everything we've built, everything I've done for you? She says no, and again tries to convince me I'm wrong about her relationship with Seth, continuing to claim she isn't having an affair. How dare you continue to lie to me? It's not going to work, Bryn. You can't rewrite history to suit your narrative. I heard you with him. I know about all the dates, the parks, restaurants, vacation stays, all of the lies. You really try to make it seem like I was the cause of our problems, when this whole time you were the one sleeping with someone else and practically having a whole nother relationship with him. Ray, just please listen to me. You were always so busy with work and I felt alone. Seth was just there for me during a time when I needed a friend, okay? Yeah, a friend. Although I lost my cool at the hotel, now at home, I managed to stay fairly calm during our discussion, like I always had in our relationship. I don't scream, I don't yell or get physical with her. My dad was that kind of guy and I always promised myself I wouldn't be if or when I found the woman I chose to marry and make the mother of my children. And even though she crapped all over our vows, I was going to stick to my values. So after going back and forth about everything for hours, she agrees to go stay with her parents for a while. And during that time alone, I decided that the weight of the betrayal is just too heavy for me. Even though I never wanted to be divorced, I can't possibly go on with a person like this. I realize I deserve better than the way I've been treated in this now toxic relationship, so I find my own place to live, and Bryn moves back into the house once I move out and we apply for the divorce. As I'm writing this, it's been weeks since I moved and I feel so scarred by everything that I don't know if I'll ever love another woman or want to marry one again. There are so many unanswered questions since Bryn won't admit what she's done. How long did she do this? Why did she do this? Were there other men I don't know about? I'll probably never get the answers I want to these questions, so all I can do now is try to forget this ever happened, but I don't see how that's possible, and I wouldn't wish the way I'm feeling on my worst enemy. At this point, I've completely cut contact with her, other than to finalize the divorce, and I guess I'll just continue working on my hobbies, exercising, and trying my best to get out there and meet new people so I can move on. If you dig this video, click here to watch another one, click like, leave a comment, and share it. Those things help out the channel and are greatly appreciated. And please leave a 5-star review on any surveys you see in your feed. Thanks for watching and supporting the channel. Hope you all take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.